The government will have to raid next year's budget to pay for higher KiwiSaver contributions for public sector workers. The Greens say the government did not account for that increase for its own employees and is therefore facing a budget hole in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Meanwhile, a former MP is setting up a People Select Committee to give the public a chance to discuss the implications of pay equity changes. Here's political correspondent Zane Small.
The Women's Suffrage Room at Parliament, where former National MP Marilyn Waring announced the formation of a People's Select Committee to hear views on the government's changes to pay equity law.
I just have a lot of difficulty as a researcher in seeing pieces of legislation of such magnitude passed without evidence before the House and before parliamentarians.
The government changed the Pay Equity Act, including tightening the scope for claims, earlier this month. It passed under urgency, foregoing the usual submission process.
New Zealand will fight, unions will fight, women will fight.
Marilyn Waring served as an MP in the 70s and 80s under former Prime Minister Robert Muldoon, who often used urgency to pass laws.
I sat in a parliament that was bedevilled by urgency under Muldoon for, on many occasions. But my beef here is, where was the evidence?
Her People's Select Committee will be led by former female MPs from across the political aisle, including Labour's Nanaia Mahuta and National's Jo Hayes. The committee will hear from submitters about the implications of the pay equity changes, which, according to last week's budget, saved the government nearly $13 billion.
We have very clear evidence that the costs for that scheme had blown out considerably and that it had departed from its earlier purpose, which was to correct sex-based discrimination.
The government is also projected to save $2.3 billion by halving its contribution to KiwiSaver to $260 a year. To make up for it, the government is increasing the default contribution rate for workers and employers from 3% to 4% by 2028. But remember, the government is an employer itself, and documents show Treasury warned there may be increased costs arising from increases in employer contributions following Budget 2025 decisions.
You're looking at somewhere between $600 to $700 million over the forecast period of the next 4 years that the government will be needing to find with that increased cost to the wage bill.
The number that Chloe Swarbrick has floated about is ludicrous.
But the Finance Minister acknowledged that KiwiSaver changes will cost the government as an employer.
We will now be working with individual government agencies to identify what potential costs they could face.
While employers and workers are facing those new KiwiSaver costs, beneficiaries are facing new sanctions. As of today, those on job seeker support may have half their main benefit put onto a payment card for 1 month. It can only be used at approved shops for groceries, transport and health and education items. They may also need to complete 5 hours of community work per week for 1 month. Union leaders representing those who are employed are not giving up the fight to restore the original pay equity scope.
Women like care and support workers, probation officers, teachers and nurses, all of whom have had their wages stolen by this government.
The government has already made up its mind on this issue.
The People's Select Committee, at least an opportunity to talk about it.
Well, kia ora, Zane. So what will this People's Select Committee look like?
Well, the first hearing will be held in August, possibly here at Parliament, and then the rest will be held online to hear from people in the regions. I asked Marilyn Waring today what she hopes to achieve from this, and she said the outcome will be a fulsome report by Christmas with submissions that everyone can access and read. That's the point she's trying to make, that those pay equity changes were passed into law without hearing from the public. As you saw in my story, the government has made up its mind on this issue, but Nicola Willis said today people are welcome to discuss it further. She's meant to be in Auckland tomorrow doing business visits, and she should be accompanied by the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, though he may be still recovering from a cold.
OK, Zane, thanks so much for that update.